Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
Today, we're talking about a really exciting movie, Anatomy of a Fall, which won the Best Picture at Cannes back in the spring, early summer. I forget exactly when that is. I want to say it's in May.
That sounds about right.
Right around there.
Yeah.
And it's been getting kind of a slow rollout, but it's been kind of buzzy ever since it won Best Picture at Cannes, and it's got Sandra Huller in it, who I think is about to become a big star. She's also in, that Jonathan Glazer movie that comes out in a few weeks that I cannot remember the title of right now. I will find it shortly. The Zone of Interest.
No, it's just
okay.
And she was in Tony Erdmann from a few years ago. She's kind of feels like one of the bigger international actresses right now, and kind of seems like she's going to have a big moment with two highly acclaimed movies coming out, the first of which, Anatomy of a Fall. Adam, would you like to tell the people what it's about?
Indeed. A woman is suspected of her husband's murder, and their blind son faces a moral dilemma as the main witness.
Yeah, really interesting concept here. And we should mention right off the bat that this is going to be a spoiler review because the movie ends in a way where I think anybody who's seen it is going to be interested to hear other people's thoughts on how the movie ends.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where if you've seen it, you go back. I feel like it's just kind of dull to sort of dance around the ending for a review. And I think the movie's getting big enough praise where hopefully people are going to be going to see it.
Yep.
So this is going to be a spoiler review. We're going to talk about the ending in a little bit here. But first off, I guess just initial thoughts. Did you guys like this movie?
I'll go first. Yeah, I did. I felt like it kept it simple but focused on the right things. Very detailed. Like it has like the procedural element because we really see like every little bit of evidence and kind of people's opinions and shifting one way. And then this down the second half, the courtroom drama part of it, I thought was really well done. Like my favorite courtroom stuff in any movie in a while. Like I thought the Oppenheimer courtroom stuff was great, but this I just think it pulls off everything it's going for. And, for as long as it was, I felt like it pretty much flew by. So yeah, initial thoughts. I liked it a lot.
I'd agree with that. I liked it. And to talk about that courtroom stuff a little bit. I love that this is a French film. So it's a different style of like government or law structure than what we have. So that's a very interesting, they're seated at opposite sides. The prosecutor can basically stand up whenever he wants and just start asking questions. Like it's not so like segmented and, so I thought that was really cool.
The jury's kind of like above them in front, kind of like wrapped around. Like, yeah, it was very interesting. Kind of a neat little wrinkle.
Yeah, that was a nice fresh take on. I mean, it's not fresh take, obviously for us. I really enjoyed that part, but I like this movie. Maybe slightly less or slightly more in some areas than you guys did, but I love the deep dive into like a couple's relationship and how they got there. Because obviously things are never. So somebody ends up dead. Like nothing's going perfectly, but it's not. It's not horrible. So
yeah,
I mean, maybe it wasn't until
we're
some things happened, and then
kind of like playing with our perception of like, are these relationship troubles enough to drive someone to murder? And what kind of a hard to define question.
How do you get to that point if it is murder? If it's like it's just an accident, like how do these types of things even just occur? So it's a fun little thought experiment.
Yeah, I liked it a lot as well. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I particularly like how it's able to kind of present these marital issues that are, for the most part, very normal. I mean, they're fighting about stuff, but they seem fine from the outside, and they're presented in a way that outside of there being a dead body here, which, big red flag, obviously.
Yeah.
But weird. Outside of that, they don't seem that abnormal from a typical marriage that maybe has some rocky moments. And a little more more problems than you'd like, but there are all kinds of marriages like that all over the place where nobody is murdered, and that's the key question in this entire movie from pretty much the like minute 7 or 10 all the way through to the end is, did she kill her husband?
Yeah,
and because this is a spoiler review, we if you've seen this movie, you know that it ends on an ambiguous note, which I think, whether you think she did it or not, I think is the right ending for a couple of reasons. One, just because so much of it is sort of sketchy hearsay and circumstantial stuff and like eyewitness accounts from like a blind kid who can hear really well, who thinks he has a good idea of where he is, but is not a perfect witness. And whether so there's just really not a lot of evidence here pointing one way or the other. And then second, I just think it's fun to end a movie on an ambiguous note like this if you can pull it off. Yeah. And I think this absolutely pulls it off because the movie works whether she did it or not. Yeah. They lay enough groundwork on both sides to, when ambiguity doesn't work is when one answer breaks the movie.
Yeah.
Like when one solution means that the story no longer makes sense, that's ambiguity done poorly. Either way here, the themes work, the performances work, the story works.
Yeah.
So that's where I was also really, really impressed with this, how it was kind of able to land on that ending and not reveal what actually happened.
Yeah.
And still have it be so gripping and work from both sides.
Yeah, the film manages to squeeze all of the drama out of just the process and the question of what happened. And to the point where, like, even if there had been a little, like, 2-minute scene at the end where we get a flashback and show what really happened, that just would have felt unnecessary. Because it's like, at this point, we've already seen...
glad we didn't get that.
Right?
Like, you've already given us everything else. Why just spoil it again?
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
We've seen the emotional toll it's taken on these characters. We also think maybe she did, maybe she didn't. And our perception, everything has already been like achieved as far as what the movie is trying to do. So yeah, that would have been a waste. It's not like, I feel like some movies, they need a dramatic ending or to land the ending to pull off the drama. But this movie was able to realize that the drama is just the everyday, like, sitting around a coffee table with your son and the judicial appointed observee because you can't talk about the trial with your son about maybe you killed your husband. Like, there's enough drama there.
Yeah.
It's
already a strange situation
for like 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's good for initial thoughts.
Yeah, so I guess high points for me, I just wanted to touch on a couple other things. First off, I think the script is fantastic. The dialogue here is great. The way that everything is kind of played out and kind of the way that they structure it, when they give us information, the way that they have characters kind of be like, oh, I said this the first time, but now when I think about it again, I'm saying something else. And how almost in every scene in this movie, you can view what a character is saying from multiple angles. Whether it's like the kid, did he actually just kind of misremember, or is he now going down a path where he thinks like, I need to protect my mom?
Yeah.
Which one is it? And both are believable. And you get something like that in almost every second of this movie, which I think is so impressive. And then on top of that, the performances here are phenomenal. I mean, Sandra Huller, and then who is it who plays her husband? What's his name?
His name is, I just rolled past it.
The husband?
Yeah. I can't remember what his name is, but
Samuel Thies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the scene, we're told about a recording early in the movie that gives the prosecutors enough information, they think, and justification to press charges.
Yep.
And to indict. And then you almost kind of forget about it because everything else is so interesting.
Yep.
But then we get an actual flashback and watch that unfold. And that scene is insanely good. The acting there is incredible. And the choice by the director to have us watch all of it, but then cut back to the courtroom and watch everybody listen to it when it gets violent, I thought was incredibly well done. And again, that conversation, like, it starts in a way where you think like, wow, like she's really mean.
Yeah.
Kind of has a point here. And then there's a moment in the conversation where you think like, man, maybe he is just kind of like depressed and complaining and upset and kind of resents her for having success that he's not having. And maybe that's why he's choosing to not work on his stuff. It just goes again with every single scene where you can see it from both angles. And I think the script and then the performances heighten that. And it's just all the way through. I think it's incredibly well done.
Yeah, I think that scene in particular is the high point. I think it's the emotional high point because that's where you really get a sense. I mean, I feel like that's the scene where maybe you don't really get a sense, but you basically decide for yourself who you're rooting for, sort of like which way you want it to go. Because if you're on one of their sides, you're going to start seeing the rest of the movie is a little bit more tilted, maybe for or against that character, which is why this ending is so interesting. It's why the courtroom is so interesting. It's why the choices that Daniel may or may not make become interesting. Everything just compounds, and that's the culmination of all of that. Even though it's technically like the start of this whole movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's really interesting too. I kind of forgot while they were showing us that because it's so far down the road. I mean, it's a year after the incident.
Yeah.
So that incident or that video or recording is over a year ago. I'd kind of forgotten that it's like literally the day before his death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way that it
less than
out.
24 hours.
So long ago, but then you're like, oh yeah, they've been going through this for like a year.
I was going to say the neat observation about that scene is to point to how good the writing is and how good the performance is by the main actress, Sandra Huller. Even just the mannerisms and the way that she is acting in that flashback is different than what we've seen her do in the whole movie. Because basically as soon as we meet the character, her husband is dead and everyone thinks that she did it. So for 2 hours or whatever, all we're getting is accused Sandra and how would she act? And of course she's trying to be extra nice and extra helpful. And then in this flashback, we get her just like slumped back with her coffee, kind of being rude, kind of being like, oh dude, like shut up. Like you're always talking this shit. Like we just like, it was just like, we even got like the real her, like before all of this. And even though the scene isn't long, they were still able to kind of like, I just love that little wrinkle. Like, I just think it's so well done and well presented.
Yeah, I love that point. I mean, this is a spoiler review, so do you want I just kind of wanted to ask both of you, do you think she did it?
Adam, do you want to go first?
100%. Okay. There's no doubt in my mind she did it.
Yeah,
she didn't do it. Like she absolutely did this. It was for a reason. There's multiple reasons throughout the movie. I 100% think she did it, and I don't think she's remorseful at all. She very clearly does not want to be married.
Not even remorseful. That wasn't even the question. And Adam's and I don't even think. I think
it's slightly ambiguous. Like, yeah, she's making some good points, but it's usually like, yeah, you're not ambitious. She stole his ideas. Like, you're the one who has sacrificed everything to take care of our child that we like. He does all the cooking and cleaning and everything, and she just like lounges around. Like, maybe I'll go get a coffee. Maybe I'll invite some hot young person over that I can interview who's interested in me. Oh my! Like,
yeah,
she's already cheated on him multiple times. Like, no, go fuck yourself. Like, she's absolutely. Like, and now he's recording her. He's recording their interactions because something is happening. He's finally getting the strength to leave. All of those kind of things are happening. He's clearly like, maybe he was in a depression. He's now getting out of it because he's making moves to make sure he's no longer with this woman, this horribly mean person who's just ruining his life. She doesn't help out with their son. He's taking steps to like extricate himself from the situation and then legally take care of it with these recordings. Like, look, she's violent. She, all of this shit. And then she realized that her golden goose, like the ideas and everything, she lives this great life because he does everything else, is now going to leave. So she kills him or manages a situation where like,
thank you, prosecutor, for that closing argument.
That's me. That's how I saw it. I don't know. Like,
mic drop
there for Adam.
You can see it the other way.
I'm just gonna hop in here and say that
I think her arguments are terrible against him, and he's got all of that kind of evidence. But
I'm just gonna jump in and say that I don't think she did it.
That's fair.
You think
You're like, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's still possible.
Because then do you think that he killed himself, or do you think it was just a fall, just an accident? He's up there working.
One or the other.
I think, yeah.
Tied up in a wire speaker wire.
I think he fell out of that window when she was not in that room.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think it's a movie that, for me at least, I viewed it as something that's trying to kind of lay all this groundwork for why you think she would from like an emotional level.
Yeah.
But from like an actual evidence standpoint, it doesn't really hold up all that well, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what the trick the movie is trying to play, is it's kind of giving you every single reason why she would, but it doesn't really give you that many reasons why she did or could.
Or any sort of hard proof. There's no scene of the murder weapon buried in the snow.
And you know what? I'm just gonna back up my boy Daniel. He needs to believe that she didn't do it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's also true because he plays a large part. Like,
I also feel
he has a lot of sway.
The biggest, I feel like kind of one of the big points this movie makes at the end is choosing your own reality. And how that can be applied to justice, and how, our system of trying to find justice and get down to the bottom of what happened, isn't perfect. And sometimes, in this situation, like, Daniel just had to make a choice of what world he wanted to live in, and he makes the choice to,
specifically because he doesn't know.
Yeah,
that's a great point, because I think
hard evidence
that to both Daniel and not Daniel. I forget her name in the movie.
Sandra.
Sandra. And I think you can apply that both to Sandra and Samuel, that they've chosen their own reality to a certain extent because they're still in that relationship. They're choosing to sacrifice work to teach or whatever, or they're choosing to do more work and to sacrifice maybe house stuff. But they know what they're doing. Daniel doesn't know. That's a great point. Like, he chooses his reality because he has no idea.
I'm going to fall kind of right in between both of your stances. And this is my experience when watching it was, I didn't want her to get in trouble and go to and I loved, and immediately one of my favorite characters in the movie is her friend, the lawyer friend of Renzi.
Yes.
Yeah. He was expertly cast as friendly lawyer guy who you would just be so happy to have on your team. And then they also cast the prosecutor perfectly as
he was
snake-like, sniveling, but clearly super smart and good at his job prosecutor, that you're just like, oh God, this guy's going to definitely put me away. But so like during the movie, I wanted her to get off, and I loved the Renzi's arguments, and I was like, yeah, get him. Like, yeah. And then when she gets, and I also thought, to your point, Nate, that like just looking at it from strictly a non-emotional courtrooms, like the evidence is flimsy. There is not a lot.
Adam agrees with that, and he thinks she did it. But
so it's like, okay,
but that's the beauty of it.
This is like flimsy. I emotionally want her to get off, so like, all right, I'm glad she did. And then like the moment that she did, I was like, but she totally could have just gotten away.
Like, but murder. Boy, do I feel dirty about that.
Like,
because she kind of gets away like.
And
nailed it. Like,
I like that the movie doesn't linger on that. It just gives us a couple scenes with her and her son, and then just her son kind of like the realization of like, oh yeah, so maybe she did just get away with killing my dad and I helped. Like, but they don't linger on it. It's just a look and a thought, and then moving on.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I like you bringing up her friend who's the lawyer, because at the beginning of the movie, when he's asking her to kind of walk him through it, there's a moment where she stops and she says, I didn't kill my husband. And I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's basically like, it doesn't matter, or that's not really the point.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really interesting line early in the movie that just kind of goes back towards the end. Like I don't know. There are parts
whether or not you did it is irrelevant. Like, basically, like, we just have to deal with this now.
And like, I felt like when the first time she tells him, he's like, all right, tell me everything you told them. And she tells him the story. Like, the look on his face is kind of like, oh boy. Like,
that
sounds like you killed your, but he doesn't say it.
That's what you told him.
And then she just immediately is like, I didn't kill him. He's like,
he's like, well, it kind of seems like you did, and that's my job. So we're gonna prepare accordingly.
And I love also how that comes around, and we can wrap it up and get to the stars, but just how that comes around at the end briefly after they beat the case, and they kind of have that touching moment together at like the celebration dinner, where they kind of like, kind of look into each other's eyes, and it's kind of like, oh, we're friends, but it's also like, oh, like, my husband and your friend is dead, and I might have done it, but now I got off, and like, so are we friends? Or like, there was almost a hint of like, could we be more than friends? Because I think
it's
he
almost
says, like,
romantic.
I thought you were beautiful the more, or something like that. But then it's like the weight of everything we just went through is just like too much.
I also really like that they brought us to the edge of that, but didn't go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would have just felt kind of cheap.
I thought so too.
Like,
that would have felt a little just not fitting with the tone of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
All right, should we get to the stars?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll be right back at the stars.
Okay, I'll go first here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving this 4 stars. I thought this was great. Right. I have this as my number 4 movie of the year, my highest rated 4-star movie. This is kind of one of those movies that right on the brink of going up to 4.5. If I see it again and like it even more, it'll probably go up. But I thought this was great.
All right, I'll go next. I am also giving it 4 stars. Agree, Nate. It's on the cusp of 4.5. Definitely plan on seeing it again. And, I feel like it's the type of movie that I'll recommend it to people and I'll get the chance to watch it again, and then we'll see. And if it lives up and it's just as good, then I'm definitely bumping this up.
Yeah, I also really like that it's a foreign movie, but insanely accessible.
It's like almost all in English.
A lot of it's in English,
which is like helpful.
The nature of the story just feels like something that anybody from any place in the world can wrap their heads around this immediately.
And a wonderful decision location wise. Just the house that they lived in, the location on the Alps, just very cool to look at. And also just like the house, when you're diving into it for the forensic stuff, you feel like you really get to know the house, and it's just a cool house. So props to whoever scoped out that location.
Yeah.
So I'm actually just a touch lower. I'm a 3.5, but I really struggle with this one because much like you guys, if I watch this and it still holds up, this is going up to a 4. And the most exciting thing about this is to have this discussion with everybody else who tells me they've seen this movie. So like that will be a ton of fun, and that will probably raise it up in my own, the further I get away from it, going, you know what, like that's a really good discussion. Everyone's got a different bit on it. Like that will be a lot of fun. So that will probably raise it, but there's just enough here that like I think Daniel's unreliable, which is kind of the point. But like Daniel's like the not the facts of the case, but the emotional tug for me is like very, very cut and dry. And it's almost too succinct.
We're just gonna see Adam like hanging out outside the movie theater for like when people.
What did you think I have to know?
Like recruiting people to his cause. Adam's gonna start shedidit.com.
Yeah,
just gone to the website.
Yeah, gone to the website yet, Adam? I feel like
I haven't.
I feel like you need to post your opinion on there and find like-minded individuals.
We'll see. But yeah, just a little bit lower. Honestly, like I really struggle with this, and I'm anxious to see what other people think of it, because this can go up. This is easily.
It's a fun movie to talk about for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Anatomy of a Fall. 4 stars from me. 4 stars from Dylan. And 3.5 from Adam. Excuse me, Adam. I didn't mean to smirch your name.
If you're out there looking for some good lawyers sniping back and forth with witty remarks, check this movie out too.
Yes, absolutely.
Great
lawyer movie.
Great lawyer movie. Seriously. All right. Whose turn is it to put a wrap on the show?
It's mine.
All right, take it away, Nate.
It's now your duty to sit down and try and separate the facts from the fancy.